for joining us. I'm going to try not to lean super far, because that might make it a little bit awkward if I spend the whole time talking to you like this. But thank you for joining us for Black Art, White Space Part 2. This is a continuation of a conversation that started during the Witching Hour Festival in November, started by Andre Perry, and it's something that is kind of going to be a continuing and episodic conversation that'll happen here in Iowa City, where Black artists can kind of get together and talk about their experiences of being human beings in predominantly white spaces and how that affects their kind of feelings of humanity and also their art making. I'm Alea Adigweme. I live here. These really amazing people who I'm really excited to be around, they do not live here. I'd like to introduce our special guests. We have directly to my left, Monica Martin, who's from the band PHOX, performing tonight at the Mill. They go on stage at 11. And then further over, Adia Victoria, who played an amazing show with also the rest of her band last night at the Yacht Club. So maybe give a warm welcome to those people. Usually with these types of things, the person who's doing an introduction gives lengthy bios, singing the praises of the people who are decided to kind of join the panel. But I wanted to kind of not partake in that tradition because I wanted to give Monica and Adia the chance to talk about their biographies for themselves and talk about the ways in which their backgrounds kind of brought them to this place, both as early career artists, but also as the types of people who would agree to do a panel like this. So to start off with, if both of you might be able to talk a little bit about who you are, maybe how you identify, how you came to figure out how you identify, and where you know, what kind of situation brought you to this kind of point in your lives, if that makes sense.
I suppose I'll go first. Hi, I'm Monica Martin. It's terrifying. I was born in Chicago, and my family moved to Bearwood, Wisconsin in about 3rd grade. Let's see, and as I started to play music and realized that I have sort of deep-seated issues with my confidence and all that, and just trying to unpack that, it became more and more clear to me that a lot of my confidence has been shaped by sort of becoming conscious of becoming conscious of my race when I moved to Bearwood, Wisconsin, which is a like 10,000 person town, about 45 minutes north of the capital, Madison. So there were like 3 brown people in our school, and one of them was my sister. So I just kind of became super inward and was always really shy. And now, as an adult, I'm still sort of a little bit cowering, I'm realizing. So, yeah, I'm just trying to, when Andre reached out, I was like, wow, that's really pertinent for me right now, as I'm finding language to a lot of feelings that I've had for a really long time that I've never really explored. So it's definitely going to be a challenge, I think, today, but I'm glad because I know it's a great performance that I don't know, figure out the landscape and then, yes. Is that
I think that's it.
okay. Oh no, I'm already
My name is Adia. I am a blues musician. I'm originally from Spartanburg County, South Carolina. Born and raised. I spent the first 19 years of my life in the Deep South. And I guess what kind of led me to where I am was fighting back against the narrative that I felt had been pushed onto me as a young Black girl. I grew up in a predominantly white community, like you did. 7-day Adventist church, school, friends. So I came about mostly around upper middle class white people. And so I constantly felt that I compared myself to them, and I always came up lacking. Their house was always bigger than ours. They always had better food in their pantry. Like, their dad was around. And so, you know, I realized that my surroundings growing up had created a deficit inside of me as a young Black girl. And I completely did not identify with my Blackness at all as a young girl. I didn't know how to. And the only thing that I felt about Blackness was shame. It was something that I'd always wanted to get further and further from. And I always found this like legitimacy, you know, due to my proximity to whiteness. And over the course of my 20s, I've just been unpacking my internalized racism. I think the thing that kind of shook me awake was finding the blues when I was 21, starting to play guitar. And it was the first time that I felt rooted in my Blackness. It was the first time that I felt known. You know, like the greatest irony was like this thing that I'd always like tried to pretend that I wasn't, like it's saying to me, like it touched me when I started going back and like, you know, finding all these old blues musicians, and it's like, wow, like they're speaking to a part of me that I've been trying to suffocate. And as I go out into the world further and further, I see just how misunderstood Blackness is, how that's intentional on the part of society. And I don't think it's my job to educate people necessarily, but I think it's my job to understand what Blackness means to me, and not look for some sort of like external validation of my Blackness. So that's why I make art. That's why I'm sitting on this panel.
What does Blackness mean to both of you, or how would you think about defining Blackness for yourself? With the understanding, of course, that it's, I think, impossible to come up with a definition that is kind of one size fits all deal, where it would work for you and for you. It's like, how have you come to this position where you're able to articulate just how Blackness is something that you're able to identify with individually?
You, like I can't
That's
maybe
okay.
you could go ahead, sorry.
For me, I found a significant liberation in my Blackness, and that it affords me the opportunity to imagine outside of the status quo. I think that it gives me an amazing vantage point for my human experience. That's what my Blackness does. It allows me to kind of see this whole, you know, American experience for what it really is. I feel blessed, and I don't mean this in any, I don't mean to be offensive, but I feel blessed that I was not born white, because I think that it would be harder to understand the way that the world works had I been born white, had this been built for me. So I have like this kind of outside, you know, perspective on, you know, how the gears are grinding. And I just think it allows for me, my Blackness has allowed for a deeper sense of understanding of the human experience, the American experience, the Southern experience. And I just think there's just this rich like subversiveness in Blackness that's needed for art. I think that art is there to subvert the status quo, and that's what my Blackness has come to mean to me. It's something dangerous, I would say, and something that is ever expanding, I think. Yeah.
That's, I feel like for me, I feel behind in many ways. And just coming to understand, kind of like you said, that for a really long time I was pushing away. So I feel like I'm really sorry.
No. Do you want to complete the thought, or do you want
Well,
potentially
I
to
guess-
shift?
I think really it is, at this point, I don't know if it's my place, really, but like, I feel like I spent so much time pushing away. I want to educate myself thoroughly before I feel like I have the right to like enter the conversation or I don't know if that is clear.
No, I think for me at least that makes total sense. And I think that's because my own relationship to my blackness has been very fraught over my existence. It's like I think 32, I just realized, I turned my head and there's like a whole bunch of people here. Wow. But you know, I'm almost 32, I guess, and for me, it's like I, for a very long time, didn't necessarily push blackness away, but I felt like it was not something that included me. When I thought about all of the different ways that blackness was being represented in mass media, the people I saw on TV, all of the things I read about in books, newspapers, because my parents are from, well, my dad's from Nigeria, my mom's from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I grew up here, and I didn't see my family ever. And when I went to school, you know, I often had interactions with classmates who were predominantly Black American, whose families had been here for generations, where there's also this strangeness that I felt in terms of my own experience, not reflecting their experience, and they, you know, it's like, you don't dress right. It's like, you don't have the right sneakers, like, you don't like the things that we like, and so, like, how can we identify with you? How you're an outlier in some way. And for me, it's like, my instinct was not to question whether their categorization of blackness, their definition was problematic. It's like, I took that on as me being somehow wanting in some way. And so it's like, when you talk about not feeling like you deserve to maybe be part of this conversation, it's like, I feel like that's just, it's like, you do deserve it. You know, you do deserve to kind of define what your blackness means for you, because you have to exist as a Black woman in the world, and you have this individual experience, and it's meaningful. It's meaningful, and it's powerful, and it's unique. You know, it's like, I also feel like, you know, thinking of blackness as a monolithic thing, it's just perpetuating the same kinds of stereotypes that attempt to make us feel like shit.
It's a really good point about like blackness outside of the American experience across the diaspora. My father's from Trinidad, and I always felt a little like bobo in my blackness. Like, it was just very awkward. Like, my mom's from Philly, so I didn't really have like this southern like rudeness. Like, when I first went to public school in 6th grade, the Black kids came after me because they knew, they were like, something's not, you're not like us. And I knew I wasn't. I didn't have the bona fides. I didn't have the credentials. And I just remember going through this obsessive phase of like trying to get in on pop culture, like trying to get my clapbacks right, and it was never right. I played the tuba. That was the first one. Yeah, I had bullseye on me, but I think that was an enriching experience for me too. This kind of like hazing that I went through with like, especially like a lot of the Black girls. It was, I think that they were kind of like trying to like toughen me up and like take the stick out of my ass. But I was so insecure as a Black nerd in the Deep South. I felt that I had no claim to my own Blackness, and I understand where you're at right now. I get it completely.
Well, first I have to say, I played the trombone, so we should start a brass group. And it's funny when we're talking about identity, I feel like being in Bay Room and feeling like outside, obviously. And I was like, okay, maybe if I make myself alternative in a different way, then my like, this can trump, you know, this can be how I define myself instead of me. So I was like, and now it's And it's weird also being in Baraboo because I understand, or I'm trying to enter this conversation now and also being sensitive to the fact that I get special treatment outside of like how some of my cousins on my dad's side will be treated, you know, because I'm lighter.
Yeah.
And in Baraboo, that might mean that, you know, depending on the individual's measuring system of how, you know, if you're black or white enough for me to tell you how I feel about black people, or like black enough for me to dismiss you or what, you know. I don't know, I just, it nods with, you know, and in not really having language, like I said, I'm trying to be like delicate and tricky, because I don't want to, it's hard to be part of the conversation where I also like have privileges within, or not, it's not hard, I just don't have the breadth, you know. So I'm happy for this.